Temptation. Chapter 7. Finale. What had to end is the sound of a door closing softly in the rain, not with rage, but with finality. Alexis walks away from old ghosts, Julian's regret, Aubree's poison, and the girl who kept mistaking endurance for love. In the shadows, Dae-Jun realizes the arrangement has become something dangerously real. What ends here does not die quietly. It leaves a bruise, a lesson, and just enough light for Alexis to choose herself. The Sunday blues never found Alexis. She woke slowly, blinking into unfamiliar light, her body still heavy with sleep. For a moment, she did not remember where she was. The room was too large, too quiet, too expensive in that particular way that made silence feel intentional. Then she shifted slightly, and felt the steady rise of Dae-Jun's chest beneath her cheek. Everything came back. The confrontation. Aubree's face twisted with humiliation. Julian's helplessness. Courtney's hand at her back. Dae-Jun stepping in like a storm dressed in restraint. And after that, his hands, his voice, the terrifying gentleness of him. Alexis did not move. She let herself listen. His heartbeat was strong beneath her ear, slow and certain, keeping time with the soft drag of his breath. She had not realized how badly she needed that sound until she was inside it, until her body, exhausted from surviving so much, had mistaken his chest for sanctuary and refused to question it. Dae-Jun slept deeply. Peace had softened the sharpness of his face, made him look almost younger, as if all the weight he carried during waking hours had been carefully folded and placed somewhere out of reach. Alexis watched him for a long moment. Then, very carefully, she slid out of bed. She stood there for a breath, barefoot on the carpet, looking back at him. A dangerous tenderness moved through her, quiet and warm and terrifying. It would have been too easy to crawl back beside him, too easy to press her face into his neck and pretend the world had not changed. But the world had changed. And because it had, she needed to leave before she forgot the shape of the agreement they had made. At the foot of the bed, Alexis settled onto the chaise and stretched slowly, arms reaching overhead, spine arching with a soft, involuntary sigh. Years of tension seemed to loosen from her bones. She tilted her head side to side, then smiled faintly to herself. Yes, she was absolutely a cat. Her gaze drifted to Dae-Jun's open closet. Suit jackets hung in clean, disciplined rows. She counted them idly, not from judgment, but from habit. Numbers helped. Order helped. Categorizing helped when her feelings became too difficult to name. Outside the window, the sky was an almost impossible blue. "You're alive," she whispered to herself. The words were soft, matter-of-fact, almost holy. What a wonderful day to be alive. She found the clothes she had worn the night before, neatly folded off to the side. Her fitted dress and heels waited like evidence from another life. She considered them, then looked down at the oversized basketball shorts and t-shirt she had slept in. Not hers. Still soft, still warm, somehow more dangerous than the dress. She slipped into the shorts and shirt anyway, then put on her heels with a quiet snort. The image was ridiculous. Oversized clothes, bare legs, expensive heels, and a face still carrying the remains of last night. It was fitting, actually. Part armor, part softness, part woman who had survived the night and still had to decide what to do with the morning. Before she left, Alexis found stationery on the desk. She paused, pen hovering over the page. There were too many things she could have written, and not one of them safe enough to leave behind. So she wrote the version that would not ruin either of them. Good morning, or noon. Thank you for everything, for rescuing me, for taking care of me. I want you to know that I feel better. You did that. Take care of yourself, sir. It's a beautiful day. Please take the time to enjoy it. Your friend, Lexi. She read it once, folded it carefully, and placed it beneath his phone. Then she left. Quietly. Like a woman trying very hard not to become a memory before she understood what she meant. Dae-Jun woke, reaching for her. His arms swept across the bed, searching for warmth, for skin, for the soft weight that had fallen asleep against him. Cool sheets met his hand. His eyes opened. Alexis? The name came out too quickly, too raw. He sat up, pulse already beginning to climb. The room was still. The bathroom door stood slightly open. No sound of water. No movement. No trace of her except the faint impression her body had left beside him. He checked the ensuite anyway. Empty. A strange, sharp panic moved through him. Dae-Jun went downstairs, calling her name once, then again. The penthouse answered him with silence. He checked the kitchen even though he could already see she was not there. The living room, the entryway, the balcony, nothing. She was gone. The realization settled into him with humiliating force. He stood in the middle of his beautiful, empty home and felt the walls closing in. This place had never felt small before. It had always been sleek, private, controlled, a place that obeyed him, a place where nothing emotional was allowed to remain long enough to stain the furniture. Now it felt sterile, cold, a museum of want, not a home, never a home. His breath became shallow. He pressed a hand to his chest, annoyed with himself, but the anxiety did not listen. It bloomed beneath his ribs with ugly determination. Why had she left? Was she angry? Had he done something wrong? Had bringing her here been a mistake? The questions came too fast. He turned back toward the stairs, then stopped, then moved again. By the time he returned to the bedroom, his thoughts had become a kind of violence. He reached for his phone, ready to call her. That was when he saw the note, tucked beneath it. Small, careful. Alexis. Dae-Jun unfolded the paper with fingers that did not feel entirely steady. He read it once. Then again. Then a third time. Slower. Take care of yourself, sir. Your friend, Lexi. Friend. The word should have comforted him. It should have placed them neatly back inside the boundaries of the contract, the arrangement, the rules. Instead, it cracked something open. Dae-Jun lowered himself onto the edge of the bed. He pressed the note against his chest and closed his eyes. Alexis had left him kindness, not accusation, not demands, not desperation. Kindness. And somehow that hurt worse, because it meant she still believed she had no right to ask for more. He stood suddenly, moved, showered too fast, packed without thinking, tossed clothes into an overnight bag, grabbed his phone, his keys, and the note. He did not know where he was going, only that he could not stay here. Not inside this immaculate loneliness. Not now. Not after realizing the love Alexis had been searching for was the same kind he had once believed in, back when he still thought love could be honest. Before Victoria made him confuse desire with control. Before he learned to keep women in rooms that could be locked behind him. Before Alexis walked into one of those rooms and made it feel like the only real place he had ever been. Alexis had been tidying her apartment when the notifications began. At first, she ignored them. Her phone buzzed once, then again, then several times in quick succession. She tried to keep folding laundry, tried to pretend she was the kind of woman who did not need to look. The phone buzzed again. With a sigh, she picked it up. The messages were from Julian. Jules 1818, reaching out. Jules 1818. Would like to connect. Jules 1818. Plus, can we talk? Alexis stared at the screen, For a second, the username meant nothing. Then his profile picture registered, 2 hands wearing matching wedding bands, a cat's paw wedged between them. Of course. Julian. She sat down slowly. The phone rested in her palm like something alive and unwanted. A dozen smarter choices stood around her. Ignore him. Block him. Send Courtney a screenshot and let her rage on her behalf. Pretend the message had never arrived. Instead, Alexis typed one word. Yes. The moment it sent, she stared at it in disbelief. She could not believe she had agreed to meet him. But exhaustion had a strange way of stripping life down to its barest demands. She was tired of Julian, tired of Aubree, tired of old wounds pretending they were unfinished conversations. If there was one last door to close, she wanted it closed today. The first person she called was Courtney. The moment Courtney answered, Alexis told her everything. Julian had reached out. She had agreed to meet him. And then she confessed the part that unsettled her most. I need you to shadow me, Court. There was a brief silence. What does that mean, Lexi? Courtney asked carefully. Do you still have feelings for him? No, Alexis said quickly. Too quickly, maybe, but true. It's not that, Alexis continued, softer now. I just don't know how I'll respond to whatever he says. Courtney inhaled slowly. Do you think it's too soon to talk to him? I don't know. Alexis looked down at her hands. But I know this. Today closes the chapter on whatever last night was. That was enough. They made a plan. Alexis chose a restaurant with high-backed booths and low lighting. Courtney would arrive early and sit nearby, close enough to intervene, far enough to remain unseen. Julian would never know she was there, but Alexis would. And that mattered. Dae-Jun was already on the expressway when his phone rang. Unknown number. He ignored it. The number called again. He ignored it again. When it rang a third time, irritation cut through the mess in his chest. He answered with a clipped, "Hello?" A woman's voice came through, rushed and unfamiliar. Is this Mr. Han? Dae-Jun frowned. Wrong number. He ended the call. The phone rang again almost immediately. This time his patience snapped. You have the wrong number, he said the second he answered. Don't hang up, the woman shouted. His grip tightened on the wheel. So your name isn't Han, she said quickly. Lexi, I knew it. I knew she saved your number under something fake. Lexi. Everything in him went still. Who is this? He demanded. My name is Courtney, Alexis's best friend. And if you're the man I think you are, we met briefly last night. Recognition hit. Dae-Jun's posture changed. Courtney continued before he could respond. Look, Mr. Whatever your name is, I know you're the guy she's been seeing. Fake boyfriend, real complication, whatever. We have a problem and I need your help. Alexis, he said sharply. Is something wrong with her? No, she's fine. But Julian reached out and she agreed to meet him. The air in the car thinned. Courtney's voice lowered. She asked me to be there. She doesn't know I'm calling you, and she cannot know. But after last night, I want backup nearby. Dae-Jun had already moved towards the next exit. Send me the location. I'm doing that now. Park far enough away that no one sees your car. Call me when you get there. He glanced at the incoming pin. Near Alexis's apartment. Too near. He could make it in 20 minutes if he pushed. Courtney's voice softened, but only slightly. I'm trusting you because I think you care about her. Dae-Jun's jaw tightened. I do. The confession slipped out before he could dress it in caution. For once, Courtney did not make a joke. Good, she said. Then don't make this about you. Be useful. The line went dead. Dae-Jun stared at the road ahead, heart pounding hard enough to hurt. Be useful. For Alexis, he would try, even if every jealous, terrified, selfish part of him was already burning. Courtney had been seated for 12 minutes when Alexis arrived. From her shadowed booth, Courtney watched her best friend walk through the glass doors with a composure that looked expensive. Deliberate, hard-won. Her head was high, her shoulders were squared. But Courtney knew the set of Alexis's mouth when she was holding herself together by force. Alexis had dressed simply. Clean lines, neutral colors. No effort wasted on impressing the man waiting at the table. Good, Courtney thought. Let him sit with that. Julian stood the moment he saw Alexis, nearly knocking his knee against the underside of the table. He looked as though he had not slept. His usual polish had gone slack around the edges. Anxiety had wrung the vanity out of him. "Thanks for coming," he said. Alexis slid into the booth across from him. "I'm not here for long." There was no venom in her voice. That somehow made it worse. Julian sat slowly. A server approached. Alexis asked for water. Julian declined everything. When they were alone again, silence settled between them like a witness. Julian exhaled and rubbed a hand over his jaw. "I know I don't deserve this meeting." "No," Alexis said evenly. "You don't," he swallowed. "I wanted to apologize." "For what part?" The question landed clean. Not cruel, just true. Julian looked down at the table. "For all of it." "All of it is vague." His mouth twisted with a humorless laugh that died almost immediately. "For letting things go too far, for not stopping Aubree, for standing there while she made you the villain in a story you never asked to be part of." He looked up, eyes bloodshot. "For reaching for you when I had no right to. For acting like confusion was the same thing as love." Alexis folded her hands in her lap. "That's closer." Julian nodded once, absorbing the blow because he knew he had earned it. "I kept thinking if I got the chance to explain—" "That's the problem," Alexis interrupted softly. "You always explain after the damage." He stared at her. Alexis leaned back. "You want language for what happened? Fine. You were selfish. You wanted to feel chosen without having to choose. You wanted Aubree's obsession and my softness and the luxury of pretending you were trapped between two difficult women instead of admitting you benefited from both of us bleeding." Julian flinched. Alexis did not raise her voice. She did not need to. "You stood in the middle while one person tried to control me, and the other version of you kept asking me to be understanding." Her eyes sharpened. "Do you know how insulting that is? To be wounded and then asked to be graceful about it?" "No," he said hoarsely, "but I know I did that to you." "Yes," Alexis said. "You did." Silence returned. This time it belonged to her. She let him sit in it. Across the restaurant, Courtney stayed very still. Outside, the gray afternoon deepened. Inside, the low hum of conversation and soft clink of cutlery felt miles away from the private ruin of their booth. Julian's voice dropped. "I did love you." Alexis's expression changed then, not into longing, not pain, recognition, finality. "Maybe in the way you were capable of loving at the time," she said. "But it wasn't enough. And it wasn't clean." He had no defense for that. She looked at him for a long moment. "I'm not angry because you didn't choose me. I'm angry because you kept reaching for me while refusing to do anything that would make that reaching honorable." Julian dropped his head. Courtney closed her eyes briefly. There it is, she thought. Julian's phone buzzed against the table. He glanced down and went tense. "Aubree?" Alexis asked. His expression confirmed it before his mouth did. He silenced the call. The phone vibrated again. Then again. Alexis gave a faint, disbelieving exhale. Still spiraling, I see. She's not handling any of this well. That's not new. No, Julian admitted. The phone lit up with a message preview. You owe me an explanation. Answer the phone. Don't humiliate me for her. Alexis looked away first. Not because it hurt, because it didn't. And that was how she knew she was truly finished. Julian locked the screen and placed the phone face down. She thinks if she keeps talking long enough, she can rewrite what happened. That's Aubree, Alexis said. She mistakes noise for power. Before Julian could answer, Alexis's phone lit up beside her glass. Min-Jun. Julian's gaze flicked toward the screen on instinct. Alexis caught it. Something shifted in the air, not loudly, but enough to make the silence alert. She answered. Hello? Alexis. Min-Jun's voice came through warm and steady. I'm sorry to call unexpectedly. Are you busy? Her eyes lifted to Julian. I'm in the middle of something. Is everything okay? I stopped by your building earlier, he said. The doorman said you were out. I wanted to check on you after last night. Julian's shoulders tightened. Alexis noticed. I'm okay, she said. A pause. Are you sure? The concern in his voice softened something in her face. Julian saw it. Dae-Jun, sitting in his car several storefronts away with Courtney whispering updates through the phone, did not see it. But he felt it when Courtney went quiet. What? He asked immediately. She got a call, Courtney murmured. From who? I think it's Min-Jun. Dae-Jun closed his eyes. Of course. The name moved through him like a knife that knew exactly where the old wound lived. Inside the restaurant, Alexis spoke softly into the phone. I can't talk right now, but I'll call you when I get home. I can come by? Min-Jun said. Half an hour. A small breath left her. Okay, she said. I'd like that. When she ended the call, Julian was watching her. You love him, don't you? Julian asked. Alexis did not answer. She did not have to. Something in the stillness of her face gave him all the confirmation he needed. Julian looked at her like a man watching a door close from the wrong side. Her phone buzzed again. This time, Courtney. Need me to come out, or are you okay? Alexis typed beneath the table. Almost done. Julian caught the movement. Courtney's here? She lifted one shoulder. Did you think I'd meet you alone without a witness? To his credit, he almost smiled. No, he said quietly. I suppose I deserved that. Yes, Alexis said. A final silence settled between them. Then Julian asked, What happens now? Alexis looked at him clearly. You go deal with the life you helped create. His expression clouded. And me? She stood, sliding her purse over her shoulder. You become someone who stops mistaking indecision for innocence. It hit him harder than anger would have. Julian remained seated as she stepped out of the booth. He looked up at her with the hollow understanding of a man finally realizing this was not a pause, not a punishment, not a scene designed to provoke pursuit. This was the end. I am sorry, Alexis, he said one last time. She held his gaze. I know. Then she walked away. Courtney met her near the entrance. The second Alexis saw her, one shaky breath slipped free, the first visible crack in all the control she had carried at that table. Courtney caught her arm. You okay? Alexis nodded, though her eyes had gone bright. I am now. Courtney searched her face. What happened? Alexis glanced once toward the booth, where Julian still sat alone, then toward the windows, where late afternoon had begun dissolving into evening. Everything that needed to end, she said softly, ended. Several storefronts down, Aubree sat in the back seat of a town car with her phone clenched so tightly her fingers hurt. Julian still had not answered. Her mascara had smudged beneath one eye. She had tried twice to fix it with her compact mirror, but the effort only made her look more exposed. Humiliation did not humble Aubree. It refined her rage. She stared at the unanswered messages and felt something hot and poisonous crawl higher in her throat. He was with Alexis. Of course he was. Even now, even after everything. Donna's disappointment came back first. Then Mrs. Steele's silence. Then Julian's refusal to answer. Then Alexis's composure. Each memory struck like a mirror being shoved in her face. Aubree had always hated mirrors that told the truth. The driver asked quietly if she still wanted to wait. She did not answer. Her eyes stayed fixed on the restaurant entrance. Then she saw it. Alexis leaving, Courtney beside her, Julian still seated inside. In that one clean, merciless image, Aubree understood everything without hearing a word. Something had closed. Not only between Julian and Alexis, around Aubree too. A door, a circle, a performance the world no longer wished to attend. For the first time in a very long time, panic slipped beneath her anger. Because if Alexis no longer cared, if Julian no longer chased, then Aubree was left alone with herself. And there was no audience crueler than that. Courtney drove Alexis home. For several blocks, neither of them spoke. The city moved around them in streaks of glass and brake lights. Alexis sat with her hands folded in her lap, the calm from the restaurant slowly draining out of her, leaving only exhaustion behind. Courtney glanced at her once, then back at the road. "If I didn't already have plans tonight, I'd stay," she said. "I know. You can still come with me." Alexis smiled faintly. "Court. I'm serious. I know." Alexis looked out the window. "But Min-Jun is coming by. I think I need to talk it out." Courtney nodded, though her mouth tightened with the effort of not worrying out loud. They were almost at Alexis's building when Alexis finally turned toward her. "You are the sister I asked God for." The words landed more like a declaration than gratitude. Courtney kept her eyes on the crosswalk, where an older woman guided a child carefully across the street. Her mouth softened. Alexis looked down. "You've been there through all of the ugly." Courtney said nothing. Maybe because she did not need to. Maybe because if she did, they would both start crying, and they had already survived enough for one night. Alexis blinked hard. "I don't know what I would do without you." Courtney pulled to the curb and put the car in park. "I know," she said dryly. Alexis laughed despite herself. Courtney reached over and squeezed her hand. "I love you too, Lex." And that was enough. By the time Alexis got inside her apartment, her body had begun to understand that the danger was over. She kicked off her shoes at the door. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet at first, then familiar. The kind of quiet that did not ask her to perform. She peeled off the layers of her carefully chosen outfit, piece by piece, letting the fabric fall away with the exhaustion of a woman who had been strong for too many hours. By the time she changed into an oversized sweatshirt, lounge shorts, and fuzzy bear slippers, the adrenaline had faded. What remained underneath was heavier. Aubree's face, Julian's apology, Courtney's hand, Dae-Jun's arms around her, the slap that had closed the chapter on a lifelong friendship. Alexis sat near the bay window and stared out at the city lights below. She had not told Min-Jun everything over the phone. She could not. Some things required an old-fashioned face-to-face sit-down. She needed to see his expression, needed to hear his voice, needed someone who knew the older versions of her to sit in the room while she tried to understand the woman she had become last night. By the time Min-Jun arrived, Alexis had prepared the living room with quiet vigilance: chilled white wine, fresh fruit, bottled water, plates, napkins, takeout menus, a battlefield of comfort. When the knock came, she opened the door to find Min-Jun looking like an editorial spread for upscale loungewear: loose mulberry knit shirt, charcoal lounge pants, hair effortlessly styled in a way that suggested effort had absolutely been involved. Alexis looked down at her sweatshirt and bare slippers, then back at him. "You're ridiculous." Min-Jun glanced at himself, then at her. "You look like emotional support furniture." Despite herself, Alexis laughed. For one small second, the room breathed. They settled on the floor among the pillows, food containers open but mostly untouched. Min-Jun reached for a piece of fruit, then set it down again. His gaze stayed on her. "What happened, Lex?" The question opened everything. Alexis told him about Julian, about Aubree, about Courtney, about the confrontation, about the betrayal, about the apology that came too late, about Dae-Jun appearing when she had not expected him, stepping between her and the wreckage before she could decide whether she wanted saving. She told him about the slap. Her hand twitched when she said it, as though some echo of the impact still lived in. Her palm. Through it all, Min-Jun listened. He did not interrupt, did not perform outrage, did not praise the slap or insult Aubree or turn Courtney's loyalty into a joke. He simply gave Alexis the rare gift of not having to manage anyone else's reaction while she bled out the truth. When she finally stopped speaking, the apartment felt different. Quieter. Heavier. Min-Jun studied her for a long moment, then reached for her hand. "I'm sorry you had to go through that." The gentleness in his voice nearly undid her. "It's unfair," he continued, "that you had to lose so much all over again." Alexis blinked. "Lose?" He looked toward the bay window, where the city shimmered beyond the glass. "Aubree was one of the last living links to the time before grief became the center of your story," he said carefully. "She remembers holidays, birthdays, ordinary things, versions of your life almost no one else can touch." Alexis's throat tightened. "That kind of person is hard to let go of," he said, "even when they become someone who hurts you." Alexis looked down at their joined hands. "I gave her chances," she whispered. "I know. So many chances. I know." Her eyes filled. "I kept thinking maybe she would remember me." Min-Jun's expression softened. "Maybe she did. Maybe that was part of the problem." Alexis looked up. "You took a gamble on Aubree being a better person," he said. "And you lost." The words hurt, but they were not cruel. They were clean. Honest. Alexis inhaled shakily. Min-Jun brushed his thumb over the back of her hand. "But it's okay to lose some things, Lex. Not all things are gifts. Some chapters have to end because keeping them open costs too much." A tear slipped down her cheek. He put his arm around her shoulders and drew her closer. "Choosing yourself is always a win." This time he did not have to pull her into him. Alexis rested her head against his chest, and the tears she had filed away for another day finally came. She did not sob at first. She folded inward, shoulders trembling against him, as if her body had finally found somewhere safe enough to collapse. Min-Jun held her without speaking. He did not tell her she was strong. He did not promise everything would be fine. He simply stayed. And in that silence, Alexis allowed herself to grieve the finality of it all. Not just Aubree, not just the friendship, the girl she had been when that friendship still felt like something worth saving. Dae-Jun waited outside Alexis's building with Courtney's text open on his phone. Her address stared back at him. He was embarrassed by how much it meant that Courtney had given it to him. He could have found it another way. He had resources, assistance, access, power. But that was exactly why this mattered. Courtney had given him the address because she trusted him enough to do it. Someone who loved Alexis fiercely had decided he could be allowed near her door. That trust sat in his chest with weight. He called up to the apartment and, by some miracle, managed to talk his way past the building's front desk. By the time he reached her floor, his nerves had sharpened into something almost unbearable. He knocked. The door opened. A man answered. For one suspended second, Dae-Jun's mind refused to calculate the image before him. The man was tall, handsome in a way that irritated immediately. Broad shoulders, calm face, a body that suggested discipline and confidence without needing to announce either. Dae-Jun looked at the apartment number, then back at the man. "Is this Alexis Lane's apartment?" The man did not answer directly. "Can I help you?" Dae-Jun's jaw flexed. "Alexis Lane," he said again. "Is she here?" The smell of dinner drifted from inside the apartment, warm, intimate, domestic in a way that made something ugly twist in Dae-Jun's stomach. He tried to glance past him. The man shifted, blocking the view with no visible effort. "She is." By then, Dae-Jun understood. Min-Jun. And Min-Jun understood him, too. "I'll get her," Min-Jun said. Before he could turn, Alexis appeared behind him. "Did we forget an order?" she asked. Then Min-Jun stepped aside. Alexis saw Dae-Jun. Her eyes widened. She caught herself, glancing quickly at Min-Jun. "Director, sir, what are you doing here?" Dae-Jun hated the title in her mouth. Tonight it sounded like a wall. He wanted to cross the room and take her into his arms, wanted to ask why she left, wanted to tell her that he had woken up and felt the absence of her like something had been taken from his chest. Instead, he stood in the doorway like a man with too many feelings and no authority over any of them. "I got your note," he said. "This morning." Alexis's face softened almost imperceptibly. "I thought maybe we could talk more about it." His gaze flicked once toward Min-Jun. "But it looks like you have dinner plans. I can reach out another time." He paused. "When you aren't busy." Alexis blinked, unsure what to say. Min-Jun, sensing the awkwardness with too much amusement and not enough mercy, stepped back. "I'll get going." Alexis turned to him. "Take some food with you. Give me a minute and I'll pack it." "I'll pass." Min-Jun picked up his jacket, glancing at his phone with a small smile. "Ryan wants to go out for a late-night snack." "Ryan?" Alexis's expression shifted into a cheeky grin. "What happened to—" "We'll talk." Min-Jun winked. Dae-Jun nearly dug his toes through the floor. The jealousy that flashed through him was immediate and deeply inconvenient. Min-Jun turned toward him on the way out. For a moment, the two men stood face to face. "When you're at work," Min-Jun said, voice calm, "you are the director." Dae-Jun did not blink. Min-Jun's voice lowered. "When you are here, be the man she sees in you." The hallway seemed to narrow around them. "And if you can't do that," Min-Jun continued, "leave her alone." The tension between them went dense enough to bruise. "Min-Jun," Alexis said gently. She touched his forearm. The gesture broke the stare. "It's okay," she said softly. "I'll be okay." Min-Jun looked at her, then bent and pressed his customary kiss to her forehead. Dae-Jun's entire body went still. "Have a good night, Lex," Min-Jun said. "Call me if you need me." Then he turned back to Dae-Jun. "Director?" And left. The door closed. Dae-Jun stood very still, His left hand had curled into a fist without him realizing it. Dae-Jun. Alexis's voice was soft. It found him through the anger. She stepped closer and placed her hand over his fist. What's wrong? Her gentleness subdued something dangerous in him. Slowly, he looked down at her hand on his, then into her face. He had not come here to war with anyone. He had come here because he loved her, and because he was terrified that loving her badly would make him just another man she had to survive. Why did you leave? He asked. Alexis stilled. This morning, he said. I woke up and you were gone. The last word came out rougher than he intended. Her expression softened. You looked peaceful, she said. I didn't want to wake you. Dae-Jun swallowed. And, she added quietly, if I didn't leave when I did, I don't think I would have wanted to leave at all. His breath caught. That's not what we agreed on, she said. You could have stayed. The words left him before he could make them safer. Alexis looked at him for a long moment. You don't have to do this, Dae-Jun. Do what? Make this into something because last night was intense. He stared at her. You've been great, she continued. More than great. I couldn't have asked for more. In some ways, I've already asked too much. She stepped back, and the distance felt obscene. It's okay to let this end now. Dae-Jun's chest tightened. Is that what you want? Alexis looked away. I won't ask more of you. That wasn't my question. Her eyes lifted back to his. The room held its breath. At times, she said slowly, I felt my heart slipping. Dae-Jun did not move. There are moments when I'm with you and I feel like... She stopped, swallowing against whatever threatened to rise. Like a woman in love? The words struck him clean through. A woman being loved, she whispered, and it feels like home. Her eyes filled, but she forced herself to continue. I don't want to let that go, but I also won't beg for it. Dae-Jun crossed the space between them. Alexis? She looked up. I love you. The room went silent. Her lips parted. What? I love you, he said again, steadier this time. I'm in love with you. And I think I have been for longer than I was willing to admit. She stared at him, stunned. He could not stop now. If he did, the truth would choke him. When I saw what happened with Aubree, I nearly lost my mind. Not because I wanted to control the situation, not because I wanted to win, but because I saw you in pain, and all I wanted was to get you away from it. Alexis shook her head slightly. Last night was intense. Maybe that's what you're feeling. No. Dae-Jun. No, he said again, gentler but firm. Last night revealed it. It didn't create it. Her breath trembled. The moment I woke up and you weren't there, he continued, I no longer wanted to be in that house. Alexis inhaled deeply. She studied Dae-Jun's face with an intensity that made the room feel smaller. Her gaze moved over him slowly, carefully, as if she were searching for the lie beneath his confession and finding only the unbearable truth of him. Dae-Jun felt his resolve begin to crumble. He wanted to reach for her, to pull her into his arms, to close the distance before doubt could find its way back between them. But Alexis moved first. She stepped into his space until there was no air left between them. Then she lifted her hands to his face and drew him down, meeting him halfway. When her mouth found his, the kiss was deliberate, slow, searching. It was not surrender. It was not confusion. It was Alexis choosing to touch the truth before she was ready to speak it. Dae-Jun went still for half a breath, stunned by the tenderness of it. Then his hands found her waist, careful at first, almost reverent, as if holding her too tightly might break whatever fragile thing had finally opened between them. But Alexis was not fragile. Not in that moment. Her fingers slid into his hair, tugged, asked, answered. She kissed him again, deeper this time, and the restraint between them began to unravel thread by thread. They moved without meaning to, drawn backward through the quiet apartment by need and breath and the soft, reckless hunger of two people who had spent too long pretending the fire between them could be contained. By the time they reached the couch, Alexis had him by the collar, and Dae-Jun's control had turned to ash beneath her hands. When they finally came up for air, his forehead rested against hers. His voice was rough. "I need you, Alexis Lane." Her breath trembled against his mouth. "I want you." There was more he needed to say, more truth pressing at the back of his throat, urgent and dangerous. But Alexis kissed him again before he could find the words. And for one more moment, Dae-Jun let himself be wanted before he asked to be known. When the two separated again, Dae-Jun found his resolve to stop them from going further. "I need to tell you something, Alexis." The weight of his words made Alexis pause. Her body changed immediately, not dramatically, just enough for him to feel the shift. He hated himself for causing it. "The apartment where we spent most of our time," he said. "The place you thought was my home." Alexis stared at him. "It isn't." A silence opened. Sharp. Cold. Dae-Jun forced himself to continue. "It belongs to me. But it isn't where I live, not really. It was a place I used when I wanted distance, privacy, control." Dae-Jun's hand twitched at his side. "I didn't bring you into my real home because I was afraid of what it would mean," he said. "Not because you didn't belong there, because I knew you would." "I knew what this was," Alexis whispered. "I knew I was borrowing the boyfriend experience. I knew there were rooms in your life I had no right to enter." Dae-Jun's face tightened. "You had the right," he said. "I was the one too afraid to open the door." Alexis looked away, and the sadness in her smile nearly undid him. "That's not fair," she said softly. "I agreed to the door being closed." For a moment, maybe longer, fear gripped Dae-Jun. The city hummed beyond the glass, dark and glittering, all wet streets and restless light. The night was still young, still dangerous, still full of everything they had not said. Alexis studied him. Then she turned and reached for her coat. Dae-Jun blinked. "Now." She slipped her arms into the sleeves, calm returning to her face in that elegant, devastating way that always made him feel slightly outmatched. "Yes." His lips parted, but no sound came. Alexis picked up her purse and walked back to him. She stopped close enough for him to feel the warmth of her. "Then take me where the performance ends."
I hope you enjoyed the Temptations series finale, What Had to End. So now I want to know, how would you have ended Temptation? 1. Should Alexis give Dae-Jun a real chance now that the contract is over? 2. Should Aubree get a redemption arc, or did she finally receive the ending she earned? And most importantly, 3. Was Dae-Jun Alexis's temptation, or was love itself the real danger? If What Had to End pulled you in, go ahead, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Because temptation doesn't stop here.